Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, I've been dreading recording this one a little bit.
Dreading it. That's not usually the energy you bring to the studio.
Yeah.
Why the hesitation?
Because I looked at the title of the research stack you sent over. We are talking about the downside of good habits.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly,
Yeah.
it feels a little illegal to say that out loud. It feels, heretical.
It does go against the grain, doesn't it? It feels like something you're not supposed to talk about.
Completely. I
Yeah.
mean, think about the last, 10 years of self-help literature.
Yeah.
It's all atomic habits, the power of habit, tiny habits.
The whole industry.
It is. My entire adult life has basically been this desperate quest to just get the routine to stick, and I keep telling myself, if I can just go to the gym on autopilot, if I can just sit down to write without having a whole existential crisis first, then I've won.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's the finish line.
Yeah. That's the finish line.
Yeah.
Actually. And now you're here with this stack of papers telling me, actually, that thing you're trying so hard to build, it might be the very thing holding you back.
Yeah.
It feels like you're pulling the rug out from under me.
Look, I promise I'm not trying to sabotage your gym routine, but you just hit on something really, really important there.
What's that?
That feeling that the habit is the finish line. The source material we have today, which is this really unique blend of behavioral psychology, sports history, and some ancient philosophy, is basically arguing that the habit isn't the finish line at all. It's actually just the starting line. And if you treat it like the finish line, well, it becomes a ceiling.
A ceiling. So the thing that lifts me up is the same thing that eventually smacks me in the head.
That's a perfect way to put it. Precisely. So the mission for this deep dive is to explore the after phase. We aren't talking about how to start flossing or, how to put on your running shoes in the morning.
I've all read those articles.
We have. We're talking about what happens after you've mastered the routine. What happens when you're actually good at the thing you set out to do. Because that, right there, is where the danger lies.
Okay, I'm intrigued. I'm still a little defensive of my beloved routines, but I'm intrigued. So we're looking at the trap of good enough.
We are. And to do that, we're going to look at the neurology of why your brain loves to be, lazy. We're going to time travel to the locker room of the 1986 Los Angeles Lakers to see how Pat Riley fought this exact problem.
Stun Lakers, okay.
And then we're going to end up with some pretty profound wisdom from the Tao Te Ching.
That is quite the itinerary. From the Lakers to Lao Tzu. You're covering some ground.
It all connects, I promise. But let's start with the brain. Let's start with why this whole habit paradox even exists in the first place.
Right, okay. So the source used a chess analogy that I actually found really helpful, even though I'm terrible at chess.
It's a great visual, isn't it? So picture a novice chess player, someone who, just bought the board. When they sit down to play, what is their brain doing?
Panic. Mostly panic. Because that's what my brain does.
Well, yes, there's probably some of that. But cognitively, it's working overtime on the absolute basics. Okay, the knight moves in an L shape. The bishop has to stay on its color. Can I move this pawn here?
Right.
Their brain is burning a massive amount of glucose just to facilitate the legal movement of the pieces.
They aren't thinking about strategy at all. They're just trying not to cheat by accident.
Exactly. They have zero mental bandwidth for the game because they are completely consumed by the mechanics. Now, fast forward a bit, they practice, they build the habit, they start to memorize some opening gambits. What happens neurologically?
The movements become automatic. They don't have to consciously ask, how does the knight move?
Yeah.
The hand just knows. It just does it.
Right. And this is where the brain does a very clever little handoff. When you are learning something new, you are heavily engaging the prefrontal cortex.
The executive center, the conscious thinker part of the brain.
The part that's slow, deliberate, and really energy expensive. It takes a lot of fuel to run. But once a habit forms, the brain activity shifts. It moves to the basal ganglia.
The basal ganglia, that's the lizard brain, right? Or not lizard brain, but the older part.
It's an evolutionarily older structure, yes. It handles procedural memory, pattern recognition. Think of it as the brain's autopilot system. It's incredibly efficient. It's like switching your car from manual transmission into cruise control.
Okay.
And because the basal ganglia is now handling the whole knight moves in an L-shape thing, the prefrontal cortex suddenly wakes up and says, great, I'm free. Now I can look at the opponent's strategy. I can plan 3 moves ahead.
Which is the whole point of building a habit. That's what we want. We want that efficiency. We want to free up the processor for more important stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the upside. That's why we build them.
Yeah.
Habits are absolutely necessary because they free up mental space. Without them, you'd be exhausted by breakfast because you'd have to consciously relearn how to make coffee every single morning.
Okay, but I'm sensing a but coming.
Ah,
A big one.
there is a giant but. The source argues that as soon as that shift happens, as soon as the basal ganglia takes over, we become, and this is the quote, less sensitive to feedback.
Less sensitive to feedback. Okay, break that down for me. What does that actually look like in real life?
It means you stop paying attention to the details of how you are doing the task because the basal ganglia is just running a script. You go into what the text calls mindless repetition.
Right.
You stop asking, could I have moved that knight a little more efficiently? Or, am I gripping the steering wheel a little too tight? You're just executing the pre-approved program.
Okay, I feel this. This is the driving example. When I first learned to drive, I was like sweating. I was checking the mirrors every 4 seconds. I was hyper aware of my lane position.
You were fully engaged.
Totally. Now,
Yeah.
I can drive 20 minutes to work, park the car, and realize I have absolutely no memory of the trip. None.
That is the perfect example of the basal ganglia being in charge. You are
Yeah.
on autopilot. And look, for driving to work, that is probably fine. You don't need to be an elite level driver to get to the grocery store.
Right.
But imagine if you were trying to become a Formula One driver.
If I drove a Formula One car the way I drive my sedan, totally zoned out, listening to a deep dive, I would die. Instantly.
You would crash immediately. And this is the absolute crux of the argument, that autopilot mode is efficient, but it is the enemy of excellence.
Okay.
And it gets worse. The source cites some research that suggests something, well, honestly, it's really disturbing. Once a skill is mastered and becomes a habit, performance doesn't just plateau.
It doesn't.
It often declines slightly over time.
Wait, hang on. I need to push back on that for a second. It declines.
It declines.
But that goes against the entire 10,000-hour rule. It goes against the whole idea that experience is the most valuable asset you can have. I mean, if I'm hiring a surgeon, I want the guy who's been doing it for 20 years, not the guy who just finished residency.
Of course.
Are you telling me the 20-year veteran is actually worse?
It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? But here's the distinction the research makes, and it's a critical one. If that surgeon has just been repeating the exact same surgery for 20 years on autopilot, relying entirely on the habits he formed back in residency, then yes, he might be worse.
Oh.
Or at least he hasn't improved one bit. He's just reinforcing his current habits.
So he's just getting faster at being mediocre? Or at making the same small mistakes?
Exactly. He's cementing his errors. If he developed a slightly bad habit in year 2, say, a slightly inefficient way of holding the scalpel that nobody ever corrected, by year 20, that bad habit is rock solid. It's armored. He can't even see it anymore because he's not looking for it. He's not thinking about it.
That is actually really scary. It's the difference between having 10 years of experience and having 1 year of experience repeated 10 times.
That is the line right there. That's the pull quote for this whole section. 1 year, repeated 10 times. That is the automaticity trap. You think you're improving because it feels easier.
Right.
But it only feels easier because you've stopped trying to improve. You've stopped struggling. The struggle is gone.
Okay, but we need to put some context around this so people don't spiral into, an existential crisis about their entire life. When is good enough actually okay? I assume I don't need to optimize my toothbrushing technique every morning.
Please don't. You do not need to apply deliberate practice to making your morning tea or tying your shoes. The goal in those areas is to minimize cognitive load. Be a robot. Save your energy for what matters.
Right, conserve the brain power.
But when we are talking about your career, your craft, your passion, the things where you actually say, I want to be great at this, that is where good enough is the enemy. That is where you have to consciously fight that slide into complacency.
So habits are the floor. But if you let them run the show completely, they become the ceiling.
That's it. Habits are necessary, but they are not sufficient for mastery.
Okay, so if habits alone aren't the answer, what is? The source lays out a specific equation for this, and I want to make sure we get this right because it really seems to be the core mental model of this whole deep dive.
It is. The formula, as the author presents it, is habits plus deliberate practice, mastery.
Habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. Okay, let's unpack the interaction there. Because deliberate practice is one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around a lot. What does it actually mean in this context?
Think of it as a staircase. Or actually, the source describes it as an endless cycle, which I think is a better visual.
Okay, an endless cycle.
Step 1. You pick a tiny, specific skill. Just one. You narrow your focus. You practice it with intense concentration until it becomes a habit.
So that's the automation part. You're consciously working to move that skill into the basal ganglia.
Right. But then, and this is the crucial step that most people miss, once it's automatic, you don't just high-five yourself and, go home. You use that new mental freedom you've just earned to look for the next level of difficulty. You immediately return to the effortful zone.
So using the chess example, once I know the common opening moves automatically,
Yeah.
I don't just play those same openings for the rest of my life.
No.
I use that brain space I freed up to start learning complex mid-game combinations.
Yes. And once those are mastered, you move on to endgame theory. You are constantly reinvesting the energy you saved from automation. The source gives this really visceral example from basketball. Think about dribbling.
Okay.
When a kid first learns to dribble, what are they doing? They're staring at the ball. They have to.
Yeah, they're just slapping at it, trying to keep it from rolling away.
Totally. If they look up, the ball is gone, so they have to master the pure mechanics of the bounce. That's the first habit. Once that becomes automatic, they can look up. Now, most people would stop there. I can dribble without looking. I'm good. But the elite player,
They see that as the starting line.
they see it as the starting line. They say, okay, now that I can look up, I'm going to learn to dribble between my legs, and then I'm going to learn to dribble between my legs while someone is actively trying to steal the ball from me.
And then I'm going to do all of that with my non-dominant hand.
Exactly. It's just layers on layers. The habit is just the foundation that allows you to build the next floor of the skyscraper. But the crucial realization here, the thing that separates the good from the truly great, is that for the elite performer, it never actually feels easy.
That's the catch, isn't it?
Yeah.
We build habits to make things easier, but if we want to be great, we have to keep making it hard again.
It's a paradox. If you're doing it right, you are always operating at the very edge of your ability. As soon as something gets easy, you add a layer of difficulty. So the subjective experience of mastery isn't, I can do this in my sleep. It's actually, this requires every ounce of my concentration.
That sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting. That's why so few people do it. Our brains are fundamentally wired to conserve energy. We are built to find the easy way, to coast. Fighting that deep biological urge to coast is the deliberate practice.
If it feels easy, you're coasting.
I'm going to put that on a sticky note and then probably glare at it with resentment later.
It's a harsh truth, but it's a real one.
Okay, so we have the problem, the automaticity trap. We have the solution in theory, the mastery formula. But I want to see this in the real world, because it's easy to sit here and say, just practice harder, but how do you actually systematize that? How do you force yourself or a whole team of people to do the hard thing when every part of your brain wants the easy thing?
This is where we get to my favorite part of the research. We're going to look at a case study that involves short shorts, Showtime basketball, and a surprising amount of math.
Oh, we are going to the 1986 Los Angeles Lakers. We are, and we really have to set the scene because the context is everything here. It's the 1985-86 season. The Lakers are titans. They're a dynasty. They have Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy.
I mean, they're basically the Avengers of basketball at that point.
Totally. And they started that season on fire, right?
The source said 29 wins and 5 losses. That's an insane start.
They were just rolling over people. The pundits, the media, they were already crowning them the best team in the history of the NBA. Not just the best that year, the best ever.
That's a lot of hype to live up to.
It is. And the problem was they believed it. They started coasting. They cruised through the regular season. But then came the playoffs, Western Conference Finals. They played the Houston Rockets, and the Rockets were good, but they weren't supposed to be on the same planet as the greatest team in history.
And what happened?
The Lakers got bounced. They lost. The greatest team in history didn't even make it to the finals to defend their title.
Ouch. That must have been a huge shock.
It was a humiliation. And the head coach, Pat Riley, was absolutely furious.
I can imagine. Riley is not exactly known for his chill and relaxed demeanor.
No. He's intensity personified. And Riley looked at his team, this roster of superstars, and he realized something profound. He was sick of hearing about talent. He was sick of hearing about potential. He realized his team had fallen headfirst into the automaticity trap.
They were coasting.
They were totally coasting. They would flash their brilliance for a quarter, maybe a half, and then they'd fade. They thought they could just turn it on when it mattered.
They were relying on their habits, their incredible baseline talent,
Yeah.
but they had completely stopped the deliberate practice part of the equation.
Exactly. Riley wanted consistency. He wanted to find a way to force these millionaires, these global superstars, to focus on the tiny, boring, effortful details again. So in the summer of 1986, he created a system. He called it the CBE program.
CBE, career best effort. It sounds like a corporate retreat slogan. How did it actually work?
It started with a really deep data dive. Riley basically said, I need to know what you are actually capable of, not what you think you're capable of, but what the numbers say. So he had his staff track every single player's statistics going all the way back to high school.
The high school. For someone like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the guy had been in the league for, what, 17 years at that point?
Yes, for everyone. He called it taking their number. He wanted to establish a true, undeniable baseline for what their peak effort looked like. He wanted to be able to say, I know what you did when you were hungry. I know what you did when you were fighting for a spot on the team.
Wow. I do.
And the goal of the CBE program was deceptively simple. He asked each player to improve their overall output by just 1% over the course of the season.
Just 1%. That sounds surprisingly manageable. Almost too easy.
That's the genius of it. He didn't come in and say, everyone has to score 50 points a game. He said, just give me 1% more than your previous best. But the real key was in how he measured output. Because you can't just tell a player, play 1% better. What does that even mean?
Right. Is it points? Is it rebounds? Is it just, looking like you're trying hard?
Riley and his staff created a custom formula to quantify it, and I really want to walk through this math because it's fascinating. It's a way of quantifying the unquantifiable.
Okay, lay it on me. Let's do the Laker math.
All right, so imagine we are calculating the CVE score for Magic Johnson for a single game. The formula works like this. You take all the total positives and you subtract the total negatives.
Okay.
The positives are the standard stuff you'd see in a box score. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks.
Got it. Standard stuff.
But then Riley added a special category, and this is the magic of the whole system. He called it unsung hero deeds.
Unsung hero deeds. I love this. What counts as an unsung hero deed?
This is all the stuff that wins basketball games but doesn't usually show up in the paper. Diving on the floor for a loose ball, taking a charge, which basically means standing perfectly still, and letting a 250-pound man run you over to get a foul call.
A painful stat.
A very painful stat. Helping a teammate when they get beat on defense, setting a really hard screen to free up another player. It was all the effort plays.
So he was quantifying hustle. He was literally putting a number on giving a damn.
That's it. He was quantifying spiritual and mental effort. So let's run the numbers really quick. Let's say in this hypothetical game, Magic has 11 points, 8 rebounds, 12 assists, and 2 steals. And let's say he dives for 1 loose ball. That's 1 unsung hero point.
Okay, so 11 plus 8 plus 12 plus 2 plus 1. That gives us a total of 34 positive points.
Right. Now for the negatives, you have to subtract mistakes. So, missed free throws, turnovers, personal fouls. Let's say Magic had 5 turnovers in that game and missed 1 free throw. That's -6.
Okay, so we take our 74 positives, subtract the 6 negatives. We're at a net score of 28.
But we aren't done yet. Because
Right.
getting a net of 28 in 40 minutes of playing time is very different than getting that same score in only 20 minutes. So Riley divided that net number by the total minutes played. Let's say Magic played 32 minutes in this game.
So 28 divided by 32, let me check the calculator here. That's 0.875.
Exactly. 0.875. That was his CBE score for the night. And Riley tracked this for every single player, for every single game. The goal was to keep that average moving up, even by a fraction of a point.
This is incredibly clever because it effectively creates a per-minute efficiency rating that includes hustle. It totally removes the excuse of playing time. It says, I don't care how many minutes you got. I care about what you did with every single second you were on that floor.
It creates total accountability. There's nowhere to hide. But Riley was a master psychologist. He didn't just track them against themselves. He understood the psychology of elite athletes. He knew they were competitive maniacs, so he weaponized social comparison.
Oh, this is the part that sounds like an absolute nightmare if you're having a bad week. The blackboard.
The blackboard. Every single week, Riley would walk into the locker room and he would write the names of the top performers in the league, the Lakers' biggest rivals on the chalkboard. He'd list Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan, and he'd write their CBE scores in bold next to their names.
Oh, man.
And then right below that, he'd list his own players with their scores right next to them for everyone to see.
Imagine that. You walk into the locker room. You're a star. You're making millions of dollars. And there on the board, in front of all your teammates, it says that the rookie point guard from Boston is outworking you.
It's brutal. It's a visceral public audit of your effort.
Did the players hate it? I feel like I would hate it.
I'm sure some of them did. Nobody likes being measured and judged like that, but they respected it because the numbers didn't lie. Riley had a ranking scale. If you scored in the 600s for the week, you were solid, reliable. If you scored over 800, you were considered elite.
And Magic, where did he land on this scale?
Magic Johnson was often scoring over 1,000. He was literally breaking the scale.
That is just absurd.
But maybe the most important part of the system was that Riley forced them to look at historical data. He would put up their stats from November 1986 right next to their stats from November 1985, and he would ask them, point blank, are you better than you were a year ago, or are you just older?
There it is. That's the perfect check against the habit decline. He forced them to look in the mirror and confront the data.
He stripped away the illusion that experience was enough. He showed them the raw numbers of their effort.
And the result? I mean, we know the ending, but it's worth stating out loud.
The Lakers rolled out the CBE program in October of 1986. 8 months later, they were NBA champions. And they didn't just win, they destroyed the competition and the following year. They won it again. They became the first team in 20 years to win back-to-back championships.
So the system worked. It unambiguously works.
It worked. Riley famously said afterwards, sustaining an effort is the most important thing for any enterprise. He said the way to be successful is to learn how to do things right, then do them the same way every time.
But the same way in this context didn't mean mindlessly. It meant with that same level of high intent and focus. It meant treating Game 50 of the regular season like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
Exactly. The CBE program was, at its heart, a reflection and review system. That is the mechanism that fights complacency. The Lakers were already talented. The reflection and review just ensured they got the absolute most out of what they had.
So this brings us to the broader application.
Yeah.
Because, and I say this with love to our listeners, most of you are not Magic Johnson. You don't have Pat Riley breathing down your neck with a piece of chalk.
No.
You don't have a team of statisticians tracking your unsung hero deeds at the office.
Although, imagine how much more productive meetings would be if we did. You get 1 point for a good idea, but you lose 5 points for saying, let's circle back.
I would invest in that app immediately.
Yeah.
But since we don't have that, how do we apply this? The source argues that top performers in all fields have some version of this, right? It's not just for sports.
It's definitely not just sports. It's a universal trait of mastery. The source highlights a few examples from very different domains that really show how flexible this concept is.
Okay, let's talk about the business world first. There was a tool mentioned called the Decision Journal.
Right. So this is a tool used by a lot of high-level investors and executives, people whose entire job is basically to make decisions. The idea is incredibly simple. Whenever you make a major call, buying a stock, hiring a vice president, launching a new product line, you write it down.
But you don't just write, I hired Bob. It's more than that.
No, you have to write the context. You write down, today I am hiring Bob because I believe his experience in X will solve our problem in Y. I expect that within 6 months, we will see Z happen as a result. You have to record your state of mind. You record your confidence level. You record your reasoning.
Why is that detailed record so important? Why can't you just remember why you did it?
Because the human brain is an unbelievable explanation machine. We are masters of what's called hindsight bias. If you hire Bob and he turns out to be a genius, your brain will immediately rewrite history to say, I knew it all along, I saw the spark in his eye, it was an obvious choice, even if you were actually really on the fence at the time.
And if Bob turns out to be a total disaster?
You'll say, well, the market turned unexpectedly. It wasn't my fault. Nobody could have possibly predicted that. We automatically rationalize our failures and we take all the credit for our lucky breaks.
So the Decision Journal is a tool to prevent you from lying to yourself.
That's all it is. It's an honesty machine. You review it a year later and you see the cold, hard truth. I thought X would happen, but Y happened instead. Therefore, my mental model of the situation was wrong. That is deliberate practice applied to the skill of decision-making. It's painful, but it's the only way to actually get better.
It's closing the feedback loop that our brains want to leave open.
Yes. And we see the same pattern with someone like Eliud Kipchoge.
The marathon runner, the legend, broke the 2-hour barrier.
Maybe the greatest endurance athlete of all time. He keeps a detailed training log, but it's not just, ran 20 miles today. He takes meticulous notes after every single practice. He records how his body felt. He records his mental state. He reviews his performance for the day and specifically searches for tiny areas that can be improved.
He doesn't just do the run. He reflects on the run. He analyzes it.
And remember, this is a guy who has won 2 Olympic gold medals and holds the world record. He could easily just coast. He could just say, I'm Kipchoge, I know how to run. but he still treats every single practice like he's a student.
The example that really stood out to me, though, was Chris Rock. Because comedy feels so intuitive. It feels magical. You're either funny or you're not, right? We think of the comedian on stage as this genius who just plucks these perfect jokes out of the air.
That is the illusion of the finished product. The source paints a very, very different picture of the process. When Chris Rock is preparing a new hour-long special, one of those massive HBO or Netflix events, he doesn't start in the stadium.
Where does he start?
He goes to small, grim little comedy clubs. Places like the Comedy Cellar in New York. Places where the audience is sitting 5 feet away from him. They're tough, and they're mostly sober.
And he brings a notepad on stage with him.
He does. I've seen descriptions of this. He walks on stage in just a t-shirt, looking totally unpolished, holding a crumpled yellow legal pad, and he just starts testing out ideas. Raw material.
Does it kill? Does he destroy the room?
Often. No. The source says often he bombs. He'll tell a new joke and just get dead silence. Or, a single polite cough from the back of the room.
That has to be excruciating.
Yeah.
For someone of his stature, to stand there in total silence.
Of course it is. But that silence is data. He's not there to be worshipped. He's there to work. If a joke bombs, he makes a note on the pad. If a line gets a little chuckle but not a big laugh, he tweaks it. If a bit absolutely destroys the room, he highlights it.
So he is literally filtering his own material in real time.
He's running an experiment. He might test hundreds and hundreds of jokes over the course of a year to find the 60 minutes of A-plus material that actually works. The killer lines you see on the Netflix special are the survivors. They are the result of hundreds of these ruthless public feedback loops.
That's the deliberate practice right there. He is willing to endure the pain and awkwardness of the small club to achieve the mastery of the final special.
Precisely. That yellow notepad is his version of the Lakers' blackboard. It's his personal mechanism for not letting good enough be the standard.
Okay, so we have the Lakers, we have investors, runners, comedians. Now let's bring it home to the listener. If I want to implement this in my life, I can't exactly hire Pat Riley to follow me around. So the source provides a personal system for this, developed by the author.
Yes. And I really like this system because it bridges that gap between the insane intensity of the Lakers and the reality of a normal person's life. You don't have to do this every single day if that feels overwhelming. The author suggests 2 primary modes of reflection.
The first one is the annual review.
This happens every December, and it's a mix of quantitative and qualitative data. First, he just tallies his habits, raw numbers. How many articles did I publish this year? How many workouts did I complete? How many new places did I visit?
It's like taking his number. It's establishing that baseline, just like Riley did.
Yeah.
Checking the stats.
Exactly. You can't improve what you don't measure. But then, after the numbers, he moves to the qualitative side. He answers 3 simple questions. Number 1, what went well this year?
Okay.
Number 2, what didn't go so well this year? And number 3, what did I learn?
It sounds simple. Almost too simple to be effective.
It is simple, but it is not easy. If you actually sit down and force yourself to write that out honestly, without making excuses, without rationalizing, it's incredibly powerful. It forces you to confront the reality of your year, not just your vague impression of it. You might realize, wow, I thought I had a great year for fitness, but the data shows I actually missed 40% of my planned workouts.
That reality check is crucial. And then the second system is the integrity report. This one happens in the summer, sort of a mid-year check-in.
This one is deeper. The annual review is more about productivity and performance. The integrity report is about values. It's a check-in on your identity. And he answers 3 questions here too. First, what are the core values that drive my life and work?
Okay, defining the mission.
Second, how am I living and working with integrity right now? Am I aligned with those values? And third, how can I set a higher standard in the future?
How can I set a higher standard? That's the Pat Riley question right there. That's the 1% improvement.
It is. It's asking, am I coasting? Am I slipping anywhere? And the author makes a great point about why we need this kind of periodic review. He uses this mirror analogy, which I think clarifies the timing of all this perfectly.
I love this visual. Walk us through it.
He says that worrying about every single tiny choice every day, obsessing over every little thing, is like looking at yourself in the mirror from an inch away.
You just see every pore, every tiny flaw. It's overwhelming.
It's totally overwhelming. You lose the big picture. If you analyze every single conversation you have for optimization, you'll go crazy. That's too much feedback.
But the alternative is never looking in the mirror at all.
Right. And never reviewing your habits is like never looking in the mirror. You might have a giant piece of spinach in your teeth, or a stain on your shirt, or your hair might be on fire, and you have no idea.
Okay.
That's too little feedback.
So the annual review or the integrity report, that's like looking in the mirror from a normal conversational distance.
Exactly. You can see the whole mountain range, not just the rocks at your feet. You can see the spinach, but you can also see that, you know what? You look pretty good overall. It's the right level of resolution for making meaningful course corrections.
Now, you mentioned that the integrity report touches on identity. And this leads us to the final and I think most philosophical part of this deep dive, the identity trap.
This is a crucial pivot because so far we've mostly talked about habits making you lazy, the efficiency trap, but there is a second, more subtle danger. Habits can make you rigid. Think about it. In the beginning, repeating a habit is essential to build up evidence of your desired identity. You run every day to prove to yourself, I am a runner. You write every morning to prove I am a writer.
Right. It's that fake it till you make it, and then eventually you are it. The habit becomes part of you.
But as you latch onto that new identity, it can start to calcify. It hardens. And the source has this great warning. The more sacred an idea is to us, the more strongly we will defend it against criticism.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see where this is going. If my identity becomes, I am the expert, I might stop learning new things because admitting I don't know something feels like a threat to my very identity.
That's it, exactly. It creates a kind of pride that blocks future growth. The source gives a few classic examples. The veteran school teacher who ignores new teaching methods because this is how I teach, I've been a teacher for 20 years. Or the manager who does it his way and refuses to learn the new software everyone else is using.
It's the old dog, new tricks problem.
Yeah.
But it's deeper than just being stubborn. It's about protecting your sense of self. It's an ego defense.
Yes. The tighter we cling to a specific identity, the harder it becomes to grow beyond it. You become brittle. If your entire identity is, I am the CEO, and then you sell your company or you lose your job, you shatter.
We see this with athletes all the time. They retire and fall into a deep depression because for 20 years they were the quarterback, and now they are just the guy at the grocery store. They don't know who they are anymore.
Exactly. If you lose that one thing, you feel like you lose yourself. So the solution, and this comes from Paul Graham, the famous tech investor, is to keep your identity small.
Keep your identity small. That sounds so counterintuitive. We're always told to have a strong identity to know who we are.
He means don't let a single, narrow label define your entire existence. You need to reframe your identity into something more flexible, something that can adapt to change.
Okay, so give me an example. Instead of I'm an athlete, how would you reframe that?
You would reframe it as, I'm the type of person who is mentally tough and loves a physical challenge.
Ah, I see. That's durable. That's transferable. Even if I get injured and I can't run marathons anymore, I can still be mentally tough. I can still find physical challenges in rehab or in swimming or even in chess.
Exactly. I'm the CEO becomes, I'm the type of person who builds and creates things. You can build things anywhere. You can build a great family. You can build a community garden. You can build a piece of software in your basement. You don't need the corner office to be a builder.
It's about decoupling your identity from your specific circumstances. It's about identifying with the traits, not the title.
Yes. When it's chosen effectively, an identity is fluid. It's like water flowing around an obstacle. It works with the changing circumstances of life rather than fighting against them.
And this brings us finally to the Tao Te Ching, which I have to say puts a really beautiful and profound bow on this whole discussion.
It really does. The source quotes a passage from Lao Tzu regarding plants and men that just sums up this entire danger of rigidity. It says, men are born soft and supple. Dead, they are stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant. Dead, they are brittle and dry.
Thus, whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life.
It's such powerful imagery, isn't it? The hard and the stiff will be broken by the first big storm. The soft and the supple will bend, and they will survive.
And applying that to our habits, it means our systems, our routines, they need to be adaptable. If the world changes, our habits need to be able to change too. If you're rigid, I always do it this way no matter what, you'd snap.
Exactly. Life is constantly changing. Your industry changes, your body changes, your family changes. If you lock yourself into a habit, even a good habit, and you refuse to review it, you refuse to adapt it, you are becoming stiff. You are becoming a disciple of death, metaphorically speaking. You stop growing.
So the ultimate goal isn't just to build a habit and then let it run on autopilot forever. It's to build a habit, master it, review it, and then be willing to break it or evolve it if it no longer serves you?
A lack of self-awareness is poison, and reflection and review is the antidote. That really is the core message of everything we've looked at today.
This has been a massive deep dive. I mean, we've covered neurology, NBA championships, comedy clubs, and ancient Chinese philosophy. Let's try to synthesize this for the listener. If they're going to walk away with a few key pillars, what are they?
I think there are four main takeaways. First, be aware of the autopilot trap. Habits are great for efficiency, they save your brain energy, but they make us numb to feedback. And you have to remember that scary fact. Once you master it, performance often declines if you're not paying attention.
Right. Good enough is the enemy of great.
Second, the formula. To master any field, you can't just have habits. You need habits plus deliberate practice. You have to keep climbing that staircase. You have to consciously reinvest that saved energy into the next challenge.
And the third?
The third is the practical solution. You must install a system of reflection and review. It doesn't have to be as intense as the Lakers' CBE math, but it needs to be objective. Whether it's a decision journal, a training log, or a simple annual review, you need data to fight your brain's powerful desire to coast.
And finally, the identity piece.
Keep your identity small and flexible. Don't let your habits build a brittle shell around you. Be like water. Be willing to redefine yourself so you can keep growing instead of getting stuck.
It really challenges the way we look at the word consistency. We usually think consistency is just doing the same thing over and over. But true consistency, the kind that wins championships, is doing the same thing with the same high level of intent.
That is the critical distinction.
I want to leave the listener with a final thought to mull over. We spend so much of our lives trying to build habits so we can finally say, this is who I am a runner, I am a writer, I am a success. We want that solid ground to stand on.
We crave that certainty.
We do. But the sources today suggest the ultimate victory isn't becoming something solid, but remaining something liquid. So, here's the challenge. Look at your habits, even the good ones, the ones you're most proud of, and ask yourself if those habits are making you rigid, if they are stopping you from seeing a better way or from adapting to a new reality. Are they actually serving you? Or are they just the most comfortable cage you've built for yourself?
That is the question. Are you building a foundation or are you building a cage?
Something to chew on during your next workout, provided you're engaging in some deliberate practice while you do it. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Stay flexible, everyone.